find those people that love to problem solve and create, and don't try to shove them into a box. Find a project, find a pilot, find something exciting for them to work with. Or if they bring an idea to you, be open to listening to it. Help them guide the thinking in the ways that can make it successful for them.
I'm Tracy Lovejoy.
And I'm Shannon Lucas. We are the co-CEOs of Catalyst Constellations, which is dedicated to catalyzing innate change makers to accelerate positive change around the world.
This is our podcast, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out, where we highlight catalysts that are creating amazing change in the world. And one such catalyst is here with us, the amazing Erica Kuhl, who is also very lucky for us, an advisory board member for the organization. Erica is amazing, and she has spent over 20 years of enterprise community experience. She's formerly VP community at Salesforce, where she built everything from scratch, from strategy and programs to metrics and ROI. She is amazing at talking about how to build and really thinking about what the community wants and that return on investment. I know firsthand. If you haven't worked with her, highly recommend. She's now ventured out on her own to help customers like Slack, Zendesk, Atlassian, Google Cloud, Workday, GitHub, all of them. Maybe I'm missing a few, Erica, you can fill them in for us, to build really robust community strategies and programs. So thank you so much for being here today with us, Erica.
Yeah, thanks for having me. We don't need to go to list them all. It would take all day.
You're that popular. We need you so
Get in line.
much. That's it. That's right. That's the thing. So we'd love to start off by having you tell us, how do you relate to the concept of catalyst?
Oh, I so relate. So I think when this first settled on me is when is another word that I was using, but I like catalyst so much better, was this concept of entrepreneurship. I know that it's different, but I think that was the first word that really struck me. And I thought, my God, this is me. This is what I've been doing. And then I had the opportunity to meet with Shannon, and she introduced me to this word. And every single thing that she was mentioning was just hit everything. Was like, oh, it's like, yes, that's right. I wish I would have known about this sooner in my life. But everything I did at Salesforce, everything you just mentioned, basically, Tracy, was done because of that, because I just was never satisfied with the status quo. I just went hunting for problems to solve, and I didn't let anyone stop me because I knew that I was right. And I flew very below the radar. And so I think that because nobody knew what I was doing, nobody could really understand it. So I think as soon as I started getting on my entrepreneur, garb, I felt my way come up in the world, and I started understanding how to make sense of this new way of being for me. So I think that's a little bit about it. I don't know if that made any sense, but that's my evolution to Catalyst.
It really makes sense. In fact, we'll move into the next part to talk about what you're catalyzing, but I'll be curious to hear if that changed at all as you really moved into community. Like flying on the radar, is that a long-term strategy? Or did that evolve? So that's where my brain went.
Good.
So tell us what you're catalyzing these days.
Yeah, well, I mean, I spend every minute of every day thinking about how to ingrain community in all sorts of organizations, small, super big, everything in between, and creating it in a way that fits for that organization. So it's not a turnkey thing. It's not like you plug it in and it works. And so I'm really spending all my time. And when I went out on my own 3 years ago, I had two main goals. One was to be my own boss and run my own business, bringing community out. But it was also to push an industry forward, because it's rare when you are sitting at the forefront of an industry. And this wasn't even an industry when I started. It was a nothing. And so as a result, being, doing what I did, I was at the forefront, whether I liked it or not. And so I felt a real responsibility to keep moving it forward. And so half of my time is spent doing that. And that means helping organizations redefine what it means for the word community. And then half of my time is spent actually doing it within organizations and helping them achieve it. So I'd say that's what I'm catalyzing every day and every night.
And backing up a little, because I love how you said it. When you started, it was nothing, right? There are people out there that may not know what we're talking about when we say organizations and community. So can you help us set the stage and kind of define what it is that it means to have community in an organization?
Yeah, definitely. This is a tough one, but what it means when I think about it is that a place or a set of places for your customers to be able to connect on a variety of like-minded topics and have it's plugged into every part of the business. So it's getting questions answered, it's providing feedback to the product, it's connecting and creating a network, it's inspiring career growth. It really is a huge opportunity. And so that's what it is. It's creating this infrastructure and programs as well as strategies around doing that and tying it to business goals so that it actually sticks around for the long term. So it's about saying, if we do all of those things, what is it going to do for the business? And so the business should drive down attrition. It should drive up CSAT. It should make people spend more with you. And so these are all incredibly organic in nature ways that you can do it through this word community.
I love it. So that foundational piece is it's connecting people, but they're each desire will have a very different goal from what I'm hearing.
Absolutely. Yep. And that's kind of the biggest thing. Nope, it's not one thing. And that's the biggest thing people skip over when they're doing this process is they just go right to the build. I want a community. I want people talking to each other. It's like, whoa, take a step back and think about why you're doing anything. Why are you here? Because ultimately, as much as I believe this is the right thing, if you don't tie it to something that matters to the business, it's not going to stick around, especially in trying times like we're in today. So I'm helping people understand that. And I'm also just trying to redefine that word community so people don't just immediately think it's a discussion forum or it's a group or it's social media or it's all of those things. It's a way for people to understand that it's far bigger than a bread box and it really matters to every part of the business.
It's so interesting that it's not the medium, it's like you said, it's not a chat group, it's not social media, it's all the things. It's about what is the goal that you want to set and then figuring out
how are you
the
going to
structures.
execute. Yeah.
So you're so uniquely situated because you were there when it was nothing. You've been doing it and successfully in the years that it became something. And you've been really on the inside helping organizations through COVID. Now we have this, really interesting hybrid world and, hiring has been shifting. We're in a different moment now. So what are some of the things you've been learning about community in these very new novel times?
Yeah, I guess if ever I had a doubt, I now have no doubt. Now there has not been an industry or a type of product or a type of service that has come to me where I'm like, you know what, community is not going to work for you. It's like, it 100% does. And I think it's just figuring out how it works and knowing that it's different. It shows up different. Some is entirely offline, some is entirely online, some is both, some is events, some is programs, it's all the things. And so for me, I have more clarity that this is an incredible investment for an organization. And what I'm loving is that it's climbing up the ladder and that the conversations I'm having now are with CMOs and there was CEOs and there was CROs and heads of customer success. And that's been a big transition over the time during COVID. And now is that this is like, it's no longer should we do it? It's we are doing it. And how do we do it the best possible way to make this activated on all fronts? So that's been like such a fast shift. It's actually caused a bit of a problem because, and so stick with me here, like here came COVID coming along, boom, we jumped about 10 steps. And now it's like all of this demand, but what's not happening yet is the talent to run this. There's not now we have this problem where we don't have enough leaders in this space that can run these strategic programs and these strategic communities. So it's like, now I'm like shifting gears to try to create leaders. So I'm catalyzing that now too, which is changing my business model to now not do the work, but to hire hugely bursting with potential talent and then dumping everything I can into them to fast forward them to catch up because it's created a problem. And there's been a lot of other things like salary problems that have happened, like people dumping tons of cash on the ones that are in this unique position to be leaders right now. And that's causing its own weird trickle effect. So we've got some work to do. And, but this is a good problem. I'm happy to have this problem because
Yeah.
the communities will keep going. Like, this is not going away. This is not a flash in the pan. This is not like puzzles, where like puzzles came up and probably puzzles are dying back down again. This is for staying. Like, we're going. We're here to stay. This is an amazing initiative. But so we just got to get this talent. So if anyone's interested in community,
I was just going to say,
do it.
What's the call to action for people? Connect with you? Where do they go?
Yeah, sure. Connect with me. There's incredible classes that are now being spun up because everybody understands this, because the platforms, some of the platforms that run community, like, you actually have to have a platform in order to run a community of sorts. And so they are also realizing that the talent is lacking. So their platform won't be successful unless they have somebody awesome to run it. So they're kicking up services and classes, and they're called, like, C-School is one of them, put on by this incredible company called Comsor, where they're teaching people how to be leaders in this space. Understanding this is about now business acumen. This is about like cross collaboration. It's no longer about just like sitting in this siloed organization doing a discussion forum. This is like big time stuff. So luckily there's classes and courses being created. There's certifications being spun up. And then certainly I'm doing a lot of like self-serve now work where I've templatized everything. So I'm like, follow these templates. I'll coach and guide you through all these templates, and I'll coach and guide you through how to connect with the product leader. And, so we're all just running as fast as we can right now. But if you are thinking about a career change, like, this is the time to start inquiring about these classes, or because it's a great career and it's very rewarding. It ticks off a lot of boxes, and it's a great transition from roles like customer support, customer success, even distribution. So anyway, I'll go on and on forever.
What's the career, Erica? Say a little more. What are people signing up for? The more traditional sounding role of community manager. So these are individuals, but this word is a lot bigger now. So it's responsible for creating strategy and understanding the business and setting ROI and goals and frameworks and activations across the business. So that's a very robust, very public. It's both brand facing and it's internal facing. So it's really, really rich with a lot of growth. And then, there's paths now. There's like manager, senior manager, director, VP, that's happening. There's also this other cool trajectory of operations now, which is all of that stuff needs streamlined platform operations tools, tech stacks. So that's this emerging new world of operating a community. It's just like a business, really. So that's kind of a cool new career path. And, I think there's going to be all sorts of new things that are going to, bubble up, like marketing, community marketing, and, just design, community design and UX. Like, there's all sorts of cool things that are going to come, but I'm jumping on. We got to fill this community manager pipeline first. Right.
That's the first one. Yeah.
It sounds like I've talked to you several times and I had never put this together, but it sounds like a really exciting place for Catalyst to be, because the whole nature of what you're doing is building something live that's responsive between the organization and whatever population they're in conversation with. Right. So it's like almost every day a new set of challenges and the tech. Right. So it's all three and kind of creating the solutions. Yeah. That sounds really fun.
I never really thought about it. It's so hard. I don't want to send, I think everybody does think like it becomes a destination that people want to join at an organization when it's done well. They're like, I want to be on your team because that looks like so much fun. But that's on purpose. Like that's purpose driven, but yeah, you're right. It is perfect for somebody that needs that flow, that like it is ever changing. Like, I was just on a call with a client and they have been dealing with Zoom bombing in their global virtual meetup program it's just like, okay, what do we do? What's the escalation path? How do we deal? Like, it's always problem solving. And when you think you got it, boom, something else happens. And it's just, you're right. I never really thought about it. It might be why I love it, or why I found my way to it.
Right. I can
Yeah.
hear it. Like, thank
Yeah.
goodness you as a catalyst are at the helm of really helping guide us through
Yeah.
all of this, because you're
Yeah.
real
Totally.
time helping us reframe what's happening, which is amazing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
what are some of the challenges that people experience as we dive into building community?
Oh my goodness. Where do we begin? Do we have a whole nother podcast for this one? No.
We can just spend it. What are the top three?
I think, it's still a new thing. It's still nascent. And so I find that there's a lot of amnesia when it comes to community. Like, you'll get leadership on board, you'll get them really excited about it, you get them bought in, and then they're like, okay, what is it again? It's a support farm. You're like, no. Remember, it's this integrated model. It's like, so I think it gets exhausting having to just do that, because it's not dialed in like some other parts of the business. I mean, what a demand gen person does, like, that's pretty clear. Even newer parts of the business, like marketing automation, I'm sure they had went through this too, but now everybody knows what these things are. So that's a little tiring for somebody choosing this path, but it. You have to be okay with it. You have to find challenge in it, and you have to pick off parts of the business one by one and get them excited and look at it as a challenge of like, okay, product is being snarky. They don't want to, talk about the roadmap. They don't want to be accepting feedback. Like, okay, we're going to find ways. We're going to go over here and make this group wildly successful, and then we'll bring them in. So I think that's definitely a hard part of the business. And then, I mean, just what we were just talking about, while that's really excellent, it's also exhausting. It's it's a never off thing. I always say to, when I'm trying to transform people's understanding about community, it's not an event. It isn't like you plan for it and then you launch it and then you're like, moving on. It is like plan, launch, go.
Forever and ever.
Go. And just go and go and go. And it's lovely and wonderful, but that is, that's tough. That's a tough way to be. Yeah.
That's well said. Yeah. And that's good for us to consider. I want to pull on the thread that we started earlier, and then I'm going to turn it over to Shannon. So you mentioned, okay, your catalyst self, you kind of kept it under the radar. Did that change at all as you moved into community, or is that still something that helps you be successful in helping build community?
Yeah, I have to say, so I think about this a lot, because I do remember the point where I did get pulled above the radar and it was really good. But I think I flew there because I didn't want anyone telling me no. And I just was like, I know what I'm doing is right, and I'm just going to hang here until people figure it out. And so because I just wasn't willing to hear no. And I knew that if I flew too high, close to the sun, too early, that I was going to get shut down, because I had no benchmark. I didn't have an Erica guiding me. I didn't have a clue. There was no word. There was no metrics. There was no one I could be like, look, blah, blah, blah is doing it this way. It was like we were constantly, and my company at the time, they liked benchmarks. They always wanted to see who was doing it. And I was always like, no, we need to be doing it. We're the ones that need to do it. And so I felt like if I had to stay there. So I stayed there on purpose until I moved myself into another organization to start moving my trajectory up, to start escape velocity. And one leader that was wonderful at the time that I moved myself to, she said, okay, it's time. You need to take a step back. You need to align yourself on goals. You need to show correlation with value with the business. Like it's time to come up. It's time to do. She's like, do you want to have one person reporting to you for the rest of your life here? Like, no. So prove the value, correlate the value, and then and come up into the world. And so I did that. It was scary. I didn't like the way it felt, but I did it. And I'm telling you, like, she's exactly right. The value correlated to the community at that time was insane, jaw-droppingly insane, that my team basically doubled overnight and then tripled again. And it was like I was right in the forefront of our CEO at a multi-billion-dollar, huge organization where this became like the backbone. So no, I don't want to stay there. I don't stay there now, but I felt like I needed to at the time. I don't know if this makes any sense, because I lived it. So I don't think I knew what strategically I was doing at the time. I just felt like I needed to stay there. But I'm so glad that this woman leader of mine was like, okay, let's go. move up, you know.
Well, what I love is that we talk about with Catalyst that sometimes it's hard to help people see a vision that they just can't understand. And so you modeled something, you did it small enough and under the radar so that it had successes, so that once you were ready to talk about it, you had the data, you had the proof, it was irrefutable. The vision had already come to life. You weren't doing an interpretive dance to try to explain something that was impossible to explain.
Yeah.
And so I love that is like under the radar is kind of like do the pilot.
Yeah. But I guess what I try to tell leaders now or new community people now is don't wait as long as I did. Like you don't need to do that anymore. Like you can move faster.
So you were the benchmark. There's benchmarks out there now that they can point to. I mean, you were at a different place. And so I'm curious how long it took from when you started to when that coming above the radar was.
5 years.
I think it's good for people to hear that because it's like it feels really slow for people. And even if it's faster for people now, because you've set some of the benchmarks, it like helps us with our sense of patience because it was 4 years for me at Vodafone. It was very similar.
Oh, wow. That's crazy.
But it also takes that long to get demonstrable success on the scale that they will care about. Right. And
That's
so it's
right. That's exactly right. And, you know, I think also, and I don't know how long you were at Vodafone. I was at Salesforce 5 years before that even. So all said and done, it was like a decade's worth of work building to that.
That's right.
So,
totally. That's fair. Because I had a couple of years that I was doing some of that work that enabled me to then go do the work. Yeah. You're totally right. That's right. Yeah.
Crazy. I didn't think about that. Yeah. It's cool. It's cool to think about this
Thank you. That was amazing. I love getting to poke into that journey and pull out that catalytic thread of this is an industry for catalysts.
Yes. Yeah, that's
Shannon, over to you.
Well, and I just have to say again, how grateful we are for having you on our advisory board, because as we were starting to build out our community, I was really noticing how nascent it was. And for us to have the woman who has really pioneered all of this on the board, Erica, like our listeners should definitely, if they want community, talk with you because you've helped us with really deepen our thinking too. So thank you. All right. So given all of that, what do you wish you had known when you were 20, or what would you tell up and coming catalysts? What's your piece of wisdom or advice for them?
I think that I got to go with something maybe that sounds cliche, but perseverance and dedication and determination. It was everything for me. I think that I quit in my mind maybe 10 times. And I'm sure, Shan, you probably did the same thing. Like I was like, I'm done with this, but I knew, I really did know what I was doing was right. And so I think that just almost like just blind determination and just, I am going to do this. Like I am going to make this company see the value in what I am. And so I mean, that's a tricky one because it's like, be stick-to-itiveness, be dedicated. But I had confidence even then. Like I really did know in my heart that what I was doing was right for the business, I knew that it was also one of the things that I would tell my 20-year-old self, because it took me longer. I was older than 20, but barely. What took me too long to figure out is that it was my responsibility to make them understand that it wasn't I'm used to just being like kicking and screaming and being like, you dummies, like, why don't you get it? And I was like, whoa, no. That is not their job. That's my job. And so when I quickly changed that up, things really changed for me. And no matter if I said it 65 times, I'll say it 65 times, and I'll say it 65 more times, and it until it's stuck. And then I'll say it again because it's then going to unstick again. Or there's new people that come on board. So I think I would tell myself to do that sooner and just take that frame of mind sooner. Especially when your brain is wired that way. You know, not everybody is like that. So it's your responsibility. So I think that's some of the things I would say.
It's so spot on. And it's so hard to remember that this is not their job. It's not their first thing. They really don't understand. And this is the emotional labor of being a catalyst. Like if we want that vision, we have to bring them on that journey. But I have a follow-up question that's a little bit off script, but how did you maintain your energy? Because that repeating it like 130 times is really exhausting.
Yeah, I'd say this one's a unique one because it's pretty specific to what I was particularly doing. I had a unique experience where the community I was building externally, all of the Salesforce ecosystem was behind me. And so I didn't even have a choice to stop, because they would not have let me stop, because they were like, we are seeing the value. We get it. We are on board. So like, Erica, go, like, say it a different way. Like, you know, how somebody always says the same thing over and over and you're like, I don't get it. So they're like, okay, switch it up, you know, use this success story, or here's what it meant to us. And so they were definitely pushing me along. I know that's very unique to my situation, but if you can find those people to draft off of, whoever that is in the organization, I think that's how I maintained it. Because when I thought about quitting, I was like, I can't, because I have this like huge success here. So I have to get Salesforce on board. I have to get them to see the value, or whoever the organization, whatever organization. So I'd say that's what did it for me. And plus the other thing, yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say the other thing is that my very first job there was a technical instructor. And so talk about somebody that just has to say things over and over and over again. And for 4 years, I had to teach this set of content. It got bigger as the product got more sophisticated. But I remember my mom saying something when I was just like traveling all over and exhausted and just bored of my own voice. She's like, remember, this is the first time they've heard it. That like you might have said it 65 times before. I don't know why I'm choosing 65. Whatever, we're just using that number again, but you may have heard it 100 times or said it 100 times, but they haven't. So like, bring it, figure it out, dig it out. This is your job. This is your responsibility to the organization. So I think that was a part of me already that I just brought to this new evolution.
I think it's really interesting, the point about the community. Not everyone has it that explicitly, but there is something about like, you can't create change alone, and finding the movement and starting with the pilot to give you the examples and the people who come on board and are supporters in that positive upward spiral. But doing that with intentionality can be its own energy giver, in addition to giving you the case studies and the data and all of that stuff. So super interesting. What would you tell other executives and leaders about finding the catalyst in their organization?
Gosh, I mean, I think that if I got found out sooner, I can't even imagine where I would have been. It took me almost 15 years to reach VP at Salesforce, which is surprising to me now when I think about it, because of I mean, I think I'm great. I don't think I'm that great. I mean, but we're all humble, but like, I think of my potential and what happened and what the impact that I had on the business. Now that I'm out of it, I really see it, because it's still going, it's still happening. And, you know, and I still get called on by our CEO to talk about this movement and this, you know, impact. And so I think it's starting to think about people in a different way, that it's not, people are not in a box, and to embrace people not being in a box, and that kind of creative thinking and helping them harness that creative thinking instead of like letting people just flail around. So I think I'm not saying this in like a very eloquent way, but I think it's trying to find those people that love to problem solve and create, and don't try to shove them into a box. Find a project, find a pilot, find something exciting for them to work with. Or if they bring an idea to you, be open to listening to it. Help them guide the thinking in the ways that can make it successful for them, instead of just being like, no, that's not in your job description, or no, we don't have time for that, or, you know, just like be open to listening to new ideas and new ways of thinking. I guess that's a big roundabout way of saying
No,
it.
but it's spot on, because the other side. So when I coach catalysts who are struggling, I you know, it's calling to consciousness the emotional labor that's being asked of them. But when they start to fail, I have to remind them, I'm like, but you weren't doing this all alone. The leaders had a choice to lean in, to see you, to support you, to give you the guidance that woman gave you at some point. But imagine if that had happened earlier, right? So I think both for successes and failures, it's important for catalysts to recognize the role that their managers and executives could play. So I think it's a good call to the executives. All right. What's the worst part about being a catalyst?
I mean, probably the same exact thing as that. You know, it's like the being misunderstood, or the constantly, somebody constantly trying to put you in a box. I think that happened to me for an insane amount of years. And I'm almost like embarrassed of how long I let that happen to me. When I think about it, like my husband reminds me constantly, which is when I was at Salesforce mostly, it's like, think of how much stock you could have had if you didn't have that happen to you for 7 years of your life. I'm like, oh, because it was like, I was like, thanks a lot, buddy. That's really nice. But I guess what I'm saying is like somebody that's just always putting their thumb on you, like conform to what I told you to conform, like do the things I told you to do. Like, don't think so much about that. Just do this thing. And that took way too long for me. And so that's a hard thing. That's like a really tough thing when you can see it, you can see that vision. And when you're young and you don't have this ability to create a beautiful PowerPoint presentation with like amazing metrics and proposed solutions and opportunities and all the things that you do now when you're building strategies and vision, it's really hard. You're just like, can't you just believe me? Like, can't you just be on board with me? So I think that's difficult. That's a difficult thing to do as a young person, like as a young catalyst, I would imagine.
That's right.
I don't have to imagine it. It is.
Yeah, not feeling the agency or feeling like even if you could create that PowerPoint that they're going to listen or that you can, create a stink about it. Yeah. What's the best part about being a catalyst?
I mean, it's never dull. I think that, being out there and uncovering, like turning up rocks and looking under them and digging and asking questions is such a great way to be. It draws people to you. People want to be around curious people that want to listen to them and uncover why they are the way they are and why don't you try it a different way. And I think that that's a unique way that what we have. It's just, I feel like maybe it gets lumped into like charisma. I don't really think it's charisma. Like it's just curiosity and lifelong learners and not really okay with just being like, oh, that's just the way that is, and asking a ton of questions. I think that's gotten me so far. Just being able to listen to people, learn their motivations, unpack them quickly and offer suggestions. And that's what I love about it for me.
I love how you light up when you describe it too. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's who we are now. It's like, it wasn't so much back in the day, but like now it's a much more fun. Now that I'm like, okay, it worked.
Awesome. Well, I want to we normally ask for calls to action. I just want to preempt for you, everyone, to check out your podcast, which is going strong, and Before the Lock podcast, which is, we've listened to a number of episodes to help us think about our community development. So thank you for that. But do you have other calls to action for our listeners?
I mean, I really think we should go back to the job thing because there's nothing that's going to help this industry more than people being interested in this as an actual career and as a legitimate career, not even as a stepping stone career, but something where you can really dig in and be a very, very fundamental part of a business and make an impact. So I'd really encourage anyone that's thinking about making a career change or wants to level themselves up to do it. This is the time to do it. I just can't think of a better place to be in an organization. Sometimes it's the very first cross-functional thing that a company has ever done. And that's really fun. That's a fun, exciting, challenging, hard thing to do. So I'd say this, I never thought of it, Tracy, that this is like the perfect job, but I think you're right. That like the catalysts should all flock and the jobs are plentiful, and they are lucrative. So go for it. That's my call to action.
I have 2 clients that have moved into community management. So it's so funny I hadn't really thought about how perfect it was for Catalyst at large. I can't wait to send them this conversation and be like, see, you saw it before the rest of us did it.
And we've actually done interviews with a couple of community managers too. And so we're kind of like connecting the dots on the podcast. So connecting the dots. So good. Well, Erica, I mean, again, deep gratitude from us for helping us with our community vision and being on our board, and of course, for this amazing conversation.
Yeah, and same to you, because I just wouldn't know that there is a population. I found my community in you, so there you go.
Awesome. To our listeners, thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to learn more about how to accelerate positive change, go to our website at catalystconstellations.com.
And be sure to check out our book, Move Fast, Break Shit, Burn Out. If you have other catalysts in your life, hit the share button and send a link their way.
Thank you.